All right. We are here at Bankhead Orthodontics, or Chesterfield Orthodontics. There's multiple names. We're talking about that, but right here in St. Louis area, St. Louis, Missouri, and I've had an opportunity to work with Lynn and her organization for, gosh, going on 6 or 7 years. And so what we're going to do today, Lynn, for the audience and who's viewing this, is we have practices from around the country. The treatment coordinators, as well as some of the doctors in their offices, are watching this video, trying to enhance the skills of their treatment coordinators. And we've talked about this before, and I've mentioned this to many of the practices around the country, but one of the most important jobs in the practice is the treatment coordinator. And the reason for that isn't that the clinic isn't important, of course it is, but the assumption is they're good. So until we get a yes, all that stuff doesn't matter, right? So what I wanted to do today is just ask you a few questions about your process, and I just want you to be completely honest with me and say, yeah, we do that, no, we don't, here's why we do some of that, and so I want to start with kind of the initial exam, okay, before we even get to that. Somebody calls in here, okay, somebody calls in and they want to schedule an appointment. So when they do that, once they've scheduled, what happens next for you guys?
We are evaluating their intake form for, do they have insurance, do they have other siblings?
Okay.
We verify the insurance, we see if they're in our network, we take all insurances.
Who does that?
The front desk.
So as they're scheduling?
So as they're scheduling, they compile a packet that has what we call a flow sheet.
Okay.
The flow sheet is a checkoff sheet for anyone in the office that will touch that patient's paperwork until the process is completed and they're banded.
Okay.
In there, we like to know, when was their last dental visit?
Okay.
Do they have any pending work that needs to be done? So the front desk is preparing that paperwork. When I, as a treatment coordinator, get that paperwork, I am looking at what is their insurance plan. We are a PPO provider for many insurance plans, so I'm looking at what fee are we going to be set at for that.
Is that something you guys have always done?
Not always. We started doing that about 5 years ago.
Decided to start
Just
using...
to start participating in PPO plans.
How's that worked out?
Very good. Yeah, because we were missing a lot of patients that were, if we're not in their network, they would go somewhere else. So it's been good. You have a little bit of a write-off, but, they have siblings, they have friends.
Right.
It sends the dental plans, the dentists send us these patients because we're in their network.
Right.
So we get these patients, they come in for their consultation, we call them the day before and say...
Let's back up on that.
Sure.
So I call in. Let's just walk through this. Give me an insurance provider that you guys might.
MetLife.
Okay. So I call in. My doctor, my dentist said I should come in. Maybe my daughter needs braces. And so they come in, or they call in. They say, my daughter might need braces. And then how long of a phone call, typically, is that initial conversation with the front desk?
I would say approximately 10 minutes.
It's about a 10-minute call. Okay.
7 to 10 minutes, depending on if they have insurance, if they have,
Right.
if the parent has a lot of questions when they initially call.
Okay.
That can take longer, but typically I would say around 10 minutes.
And do you find that that front desk person in your practice is really good at kind of engaging the patient or making them feel friendly mom? Okay.
Yes.
So
They know to take your time, answer all their questions, get as much information as we can get before
Okay.
they even come in.
So we're really trying not to process them, we're trying to engage them.
Right.
Okay. So they go through this process, mom starts to feel comfortable, they ask questions about, hey, how'd you hear about us? And let's talk about, Dr. Sadigi suggested you come over, gosh, we love Dr. Sadigi, and blah, blah, blah. And they go through the process. Oh, by the way, here's what happens when you come into our office. And then they start, once the mom finally says, yeah, we really want to schedule, then she starts gathering some of this information for you. Insurance information.
Right.
Let's say it's MetLife, okay? So once they gather that data and, let's just paint a scenario. 2 weeks from now, they're coming in. Is that typical, 2 to 3 weeks that you schedule out?
A little sooner.
Okay.
It can be, depending on what the family wants.
Okay.
If they have a busy schedule or if they want a later afternoon appointment, they want to wait till school's out, a holiday break, something like that. But typically, I would say within a week or two, they can get into our office.
Okay. And you have how many locations?
6.
Okay. So, and just to clarify for the audience, how long have you worked for Bankhead Orthodontics?
8 years.
Okay. And recently, you've gone from being their top treatment coordinator to really guiding other treatment coordinators throughout the organization. That's one of your
Yes.
new challenges.
Yes.
And how many treatment coordinators do you guys have?
We have 5.
Okay. And in that process of engaging the patient, helping these other treatment coordinators understand what's going on. Tell me the process from how do you find out that somebody's scheduled? So and I know you rotate around, put yourself back in, I'm a treatment coordinator full-time at O'Fallon, okay? How do you know somebody recently got scheduled? Let's say you said it's less than 2 weeks, let's say it's in 7 days they're coming in. How do you know that?
The initial appointment?
Yes,
I look at the schedules.
Okay.
I just pull them up. I can access any office from any computer in the company.
okay, and
I
so
can
it's in
tell-
there?
Yes.
You can
Mhm.
tell when it's an initial exam?
Right. We like, the front desk does, where when you take a phone call, the few things that we like on that appointment schedule is going to be the child's age, the dentist that referred, what are the concerns, and what are the insurance plan
Okay.
that they have. That way, anyone in the office, when we print out a daily schedule, like this is our daily huddle, morning
Right,
meeting
right.
is, what we call it, our huddle.
You do those every day?
Yes, we do those every morning, right before we see, about 15 minutes before we see patients.
Okay.
Kind of briefs you on, this patient has a frenectomy, this patient's getting a D-band, they need the retainer in 2 days, what kind of customer service are we gonna offer today, what are our obstacles we might encounter today.
Great.
But in that, you can look at the new patient exam column that is underneath the treatment coordinator's name, and it'll tell you, you have 4 exams today, you have 6 exams today. It kind of gives you just a brief overview of their ages that you're seeing. You know if you're seeing a 6-year-old today, it's gonna be, a
Right.
recall appointment, and, or we might be putting a palatal expander in or something. You're seeing a 46-year-old woman today, she might be
Sure.
interested in Invisalign. You kind of know a little bit about what's gonna go on in your day. So we have started doing that, which I think is very helpful, just at a quick glance, even for the doctor to know. Like,
Sure.
my next patient is 12, they're have a crossbite, they're
Right.
a class 2.
Right,
Kind of lets us know a little bit about what we're getting ready to start.
okay.
So,
I think the morning huddles are great. I think
Right.
being consistent on those is great because it does set it kind of sets the mood, it sets the
the
expectation for the
expectation
day.
of, right.
Right,
Yes.
here's what's going on. So initial exam, they schedule. What's the process next from the time they say they're coming in 10 days? What then happens in here for them? What do they get from you? Do they get anything?
They
Tell me
do
about that.
we have 2 ways of contacting them. We either do it through email, where we send them their new patient paperwork, which is the
Okay.
health history and patient information.
Mhm.
The health history is very important. We like to know if they have allergies to latex or anything that we should be concerned about before we start the process.
Right,
We also like to know, do they have any concerns from their dentist that are the reason that they've made the phone call? Or
Right.
if it's just that they think it's time.
okay,
Their other kids have had treatment in another state or with another orthodontist. So we try to get as much information from them in the initial call, but then we kind of are cross-referencing the new patient information to what we've taken on the phone call.
how many of them fill that out
All of them.
before?
We actually, if they come in and they don't have it, we say, do you mind filling out your new patient paperwork? And part of that is on the second page, which is the health history in our forms. They are required to sign to check their credit.
Okay,
We run
That's
a
part of your
credit check,
process.
yes,
Mhm.
that is part of our process. It helps us gauge how we can offer financing options for them, what we're willing to offer them. I mean, we'll have people that come in with a very bad credit rating. We're a little bit more cautious.
Sure.
We kind of take into that scenario, how much of that money will we get from their insurance company? How much can we ask them to put down? Is that feasible for them?
right,
What kind of monthly structure are we gonna extend to them? So that form, when they initially come in, most people will have it, they'll send it through email or they'll print it off and bring it in.
okay.
If they don't, we have them fill it out when they come in, and it gives us a lot of good information as far as where they work, how long they lived there. That's part of that credit check as well.
Yeah. One of the things that I push back on that, I'm just gonna be honest, is I think it's great to get that information. One of the things that people in the audience will be hearing you say, and say, wait, I thought you worked with Gary for many years. In audience, as you guys know, I only make suggestions to practices, and they decide what things they like and what works and what doesn't. One of the things from a wow factor is not that I wanna say, that it's not that the paperwork's not important, is that I like to move it out a little bit. So if, if somebody comes in, and they're brand new, and it doesn't always work with a high volume practice like you guys have, but I like to try to move it out a little and get the tour done first and then come back to the paperwork if they haven't completed it, because that's more of a warm and fuzzy.
Okay, so, well, when they come in,
Okay,
I'm actually not at that front desk, I might be in another exam.
right,
When they come in, they're greeted at the front desk and they're like, welcome to our office, how are you today? And they're, engaging.
okay,
The front desk usually will show them how to check in, which
Okay.
lets the doctor in the clinic and our team know that they've arrived.
okay,
It triggers me, I'll have what we call lighting, it's patient flow. it'll say, oh, you know,
They're
Ashley
here.
Johnson is here today. I know then to approach the front, or they'll say, Lynn, you know, and they'll say, you know, do you have your paperwork with you today? They'll give them that paperwork.
And they
They're
say, no, I
immediately-
forgot it.
Right,
I
and you
fill
say,
it out.
that's okay, you know, we'll have you fill it out, and we'll let Lynn know that you're here today.
Okay, but they've done
so
some
then-
warm, they've done some
right.
warm and fuzzy.
Right,
Okay.
oh yeah, they initially, right when they walk in, they know it's someone new, they don't
Okay.
recognize them, they're not a patient of ours yet.
Okay,
So they're at the front desk, they turn in their paperwork, I then approach the front desk and I say, hi Ashley, I'm Lynn, you know, are you, hi Mom, you know, Sharon Johnson,
Right.
how are you, you know, shake their hand, give them some eye contact, let them know if the front desk, and this is very kind of tag team, if the
Okay.
front desk has not already said, you know, this is how you sign in, you always want to check in, I then go over that process and say,
do you have them sign in themselves?
yes,
Okay,
we let
that's
them
one of
practice.
the best ideas
We
that
let them
out there.
practice and yes,
Why do you guys do that?
so that they know the next time they're coming in, that's how you check yourself in.
And
And it
so,
gives them, the child a little independence.
okay,
They're really like wowed with the experience of our mouse is round and you turn it like a doorknob and they get to check themselves in. Depending on the age,
Sure.
they get excited about that.
uh-huh,
Gets them very involved.
that's the key.
Mm-hmm.
And so Lynn, one of the things I love about you guys doing that, it's a recommendation, and I know audience, this sounds very subtle, but all these little psychological things are important. So there's an old, real quick story, and you'll appreciate this from being in a consultative type position. There's an old story about a salesman that was, used to sell plexiglass, you know, unbreakable glass.
Oh, yeah.
Number one salesman in the company every year. They have 500 salespeople every year. He's still the number one guy. They bring him up. They say, chairman says, okay, you know, I got to know, you know, how is it every year you win this award? And he says, well, when I go out to the customer, I have my plexiglass sample, but I bring a hammer with me and I hit it with a hammer. He goes, wow, that's a great idea. So next day, the CEO goes out and buys a hammer for every salesman, 500 hammers. Next year, end of the year, sure enough, that same salesman is number one salesman again, and CEO is just, he can't believe it, and he calls him up and he says, how is it that, you know, you're still the number one salesman? You gave me your best
Your
idea.
tool.
Right. He goes, well, I knew you'd steal that idea from me. He said, so now what I do is when I come in with the plexiglass and the hammer, instead of me hitting plexiglass with the hammer, I give the hammer to the customer and tell them to hit it. And what the point of that is sounds subtle, is you are letting that patient sign in. They're already taking ownership of this experience. Hey, this is my home, or this is where I'm going to be, or
Right.
and it sounds subtle, but it's really important, and that's one of the things I'm really glad to hear you guys are doing. So they're gonna go through that experience, they sign themselves in, you guys show them how to do that, and then let's assume paperwork's done, okay?
Okay.
So next thing we're going to do, and then we're gonna show the audience kinda how we do this, okay? But after that, then what happens,
I take them on a tour.
okay?
So I explain to them this is the front entrance now.
How many times do you guys tour patients? Every time, or kind of some of the time, or?
I would say if they're late, I kind of give them a shorter version of a tour.
But you still tour.
I do try to tour them, yes.
I was in a practice recently, and I love them to death, but, and they're gonna get mad at me when they hear this, because they're gonna know who it is. And I was
We
asking,
won't say their name.
and I love them, great practice, great people, do very successful, they do a lot of right things. But we were talking about tours. And I said, well, tell me about your touring process. And they said, well, we kinda do it. I said, well, you kinda do it. Well, sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. And Lynn, here's the challenge with that, right? And I said, can I be honest with you guys without you getting mad at me? And they said, sure. I said, well, that's kind of like saying I'm kind of pregnant, right? You really can't be kind of
Right,
pregnant.
no,
You either
you are or you're not.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's the same challenge with touring, because here's what happens. It's very difficult for me as a treatment coordinator, director like yourself, where you have multiple practices to evaluate, to know what's going really right with one of my treatment coordinators and what needs help if they're not consistently doing steps. Because I look at their numbers and I could say, wow, you know, this week you guys were really good, and this week you weren't so good, and then and you go, did you tour? Well, I'm touring some, and some of them I'm not.
Right.
Then you can't really assess.
I think touring is
Yeah.
a chance to impress them with who we are and what we offer
No
and
doubt.
how comfortable you feel in our building.
How long does that take?
Oh, 4 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, it's minimal
quick.
time. It's, yeah, I mean, you can draw it out and, you know, if they have, most of them don't have questions. They're just kind of listening and, you know,
Observing.
Right, they're just like, oh, okay, wow, this is nice, yeah, I
Right.
probably get the feel of it. You know, I take them through the clinic a little bit and say, you know, these are our clinical chairs, this is where you can call back for the appointments
I
and.
want to
you
talk
know-
about that for a second.
Okay,
I've had a particular practice, very successful, push back a little bit on the clinic component of the tour and say, you know, we're just not so sure we want to take them into clinic because we think it's going to scare them.
okay, now, hold on, I'm gonna
Tell me
interrupt you
about
for a
that.
second.
Okay.
huddle.
Okay,
Lynn has an exam at 11 o'clock today. Little Susie Miller is kind of, she's kind of
Little
a
gun shy,
patient that,
yeah.
she starts to cry a little bit, might want to detour that part of the tour. That is what huddle is for. If you
Right.
have, in the clinical team, the doctors, they know our patients. I mean, by the first time when you've completed that banding, we know them. We have a good feel, like how do they react? How do they sit in the chair? Do they need mom by them? Do they, do they just lay back and say, work on me, whatever. That's probably the best part about huddle is to kind of prepare for that day. If it's somebody that's in a wheelchair, we kind of know, hey, we need to make sure that we have good access and we have good, that everyone knows that we're going to be coming through at this time. Or maybe we'll avoid that because the clinic is not a big area.
so
of
you'll,
people moving around.
it could depend on
It can
who's coming
depend on
in.
who's coming
Okay,
in,
good.
but I mean, that's kind of where you use your huddle
All right.
to your advantage. But
And when you do go through the clinic or you go by a doctor,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you guys are on walkie-talkies or,
this is the fun part.
Yeah, tell me
So
about
we
that.
go through the clinic and they all know. We've had huddle, we have a schedule in front of them. They'll hear on the radio, Ashley Johnson's here, Lynn, your next
Right.
exam. We come through and they're like, the clinical girls will turn around, hi Ashley, welcome, and the doctor always turns around, looks at him and says, hi, I'm Dr. Bankhead. Now if he's gloved up, obviously sometimes he'll remove his glove and say, hi Sharon Johnson, I'm Dr. Bankhead, nice to meet you.
and let me ask you a question.
And they're like, wow.
Yeah, I want to ask
Right.
you about that, because to me, that's one of the most powerful things that you